we talk about boundaries to protect ourselves from our clients or potential issues, right? But really, we need to look at boundaries from both lenses. So, boundaries for you as business owners, and then boundaries for our clients, right? So, I want to talk through both, and I'm going to show you some ways that I implement both using Dubsado. And then, of course, at the end, as I mentioned, if you stick around, you'll be entered to win the Dubsado audit, or if you just want an audit of another tool, that works too. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is hop in to my own Dubsado account. Let's exit out of here. Okay. So when it comes to setting boundaries for us, right? Again, we started our businesses for a reason. A lot of times it's freedom, right? Time freedom to get away from, working around the clock for the man. But then as business owners, we still work around the clock for ourselves, right? So the biggest thing that I see people struggle with in Dubsado is the Dubsado scheduler and your availability, right? So if you don't, please identify a couple days a week that you are available to take calls, right? If you are always available, you're never available, right? So what I did early on in my business was, first, I'm just trying to get to the money. So I'm taking calls at any time. Yeah, we can hop on a call Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, whatever, right? But then I ran into that issue of when do I have time to work on my business, right? I'm in it all the time, hopping on sales calls, switching into client work, but I don't have time to work on my business, right? So I've chosen Tuesdays and Thursdays are the only 2 days that I decide to take calls. With the Dubsado scheduler, what I would recommend so that you don't have to make so many changes to it is to set a broad availability for the days that you decide to take calls. So anytime between 11 and 5 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I will take decision calls, right? But let's say next Tuesday, I decide I don't really want to talk to nobody, or I want to block off 11 to 1. I then use my Google Calendar to then manage that, right? So I'm not coming back into Dubsado every time and updating the scheduler availability. Scheduler is the broad availability, and then I use my Google Calendar to block it. One pro tip that I have, because I know some people are like, well, I don't want to always block off my main calendar. I created a second calendar, and I actually just call it Dubsado Visible Calendar. And the only thing I use that for is to block off time on my calendar, right? So it just allows me to, I can show it, I can hide it, whatever, when I need to. But inside of Dubsado, it is importing all of the appointments on that calendar. So it's importing on my main calendar as well, but it's also looking at that Dubsado visible calendar so that when I want to kind of narrow down on like truly what it is I'm doing today, I don't see all these additional blocks on my calendar. Okay. So first thing, set those boundaries. If you're always available, you're never really available. Okay. The second thing, when it comes to setting boundaries for ourselves, is using office hours in Dubsado. So if you are not familiar with the how kind of the workflow automations work, let's say you send off a proposal, maybe you're working late, right? You send off a proposal, or let's say your client's working late. You send off a proposal now at 11 a.m. and your client is busy. At 11 p.m. tonight, they complete the proposal, sign the contract, all of that, right? If you watched our training from last week, we set up our onboarding, right? So if your client is going to receive their welcome guide or their homework, if they're completing these things at 11 p.m. at night and your workflow set up to send them information immediately after they take action, they'll receive their welcome guide and homework at 11 o'clock at night or midnight or whatever, right? And we don't necessarily want that. If you're okay with it, do your thing. But I personally have found if I'm responding to something late at night, more than likely the client's going to respond into because we both up working, right? So using office hours, you can say, hey, I want these workflow actions to only occur during this time and this time. So for me, it's 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. So any workflow action that triggers after 6:30 p.m. will hold until 8 a.m. the next day. So it's just kind of putting that boundary in place. Maybe you have a check-in automation of some kind that sends, hey, it's been 4 weeks since we kicked off. How are things going? Right? We don't want those things triggering at random times of the day or night. So using office hours allows you to just have that structure in place and protects you from the back and forth responding, right? Okay. So if you go to workflows, click up here under office hours, you can set your start and end time for your office hours. Okay. And the third thing that I would say from a boundaries perspective is, just because emails are automated, they don't always have to sound so automated, but there are some that we want to be very clear that, hey, these things are automated, right? So again, another example, if my client is completing their proposal at 11 p.m. at night and then they sign their contract, no matter what, even with our office hours set on the workflow, Dubsado is going to send that contract completed email. I don't want them responding to that. So I have a little blurb on anything that is truly automated, meaning I can't control it, right? It's going to send no matter what. And I just let them know, this is an automated email from Solution Integrators Client Management System. I don't put my standard email signature in here. It's just going to be from Team Solution Integrators. Okay. So those are the core for you, boundary setting for you, right? Making sure your availability is clear, but also you're not always available. Using the workflow, office hours actions, and then making sure the things that are automated, we just make it clear, right? Now, when it comes to client boundaries, I believe in setting boundaries very early and very often, okay? So the things that I really want to show you guys are how I do this through my proposals, my contracts, and my welcome guide. So when somebody receives a proposal from me, I'll open it up and go to the bottom. I'm going to go talk through all the fancy things, tell them, why they should work with me, give them the package. I'm going to talk through my process. So I use project dates for everything. I want it to be clear in the proposal, in the contract, and in the welcome guide when each of these things are occurring. So this is a template, but if this was applied to a client's project, it would actually show their dates here. So I use custom project mapped fields in Dubsado to enter in these dates on their client project before I send off the proposal. So when Ashley receives the proposal, we had already agreed on the sales call of when we're going to kick off. She would see her pre-work date, her project kickoff date, her implementation date, and then when her support ends. Because I don't want there to be any confusion once we kick off, right? Like when a client comes to me, they're excited. They're like, look, I'm booked and busy. I'm overwhelmed. I'm ready to do this. Send me all the things. Cool. These are the dates. These are when we're going to get started. This is when I'm going to be done with my work. And this is when support ends, right? So it's clear. These are dates that we agreed upon already. It's face up, okay? Again, setting that boundary early and often. If they receive this and they're like, oh, okay, wait, I can't make that kickoff call. Can we adjust to whatever your next project available date is? Cool. I'll update it in Dubsado and they populate here, okay? Another thing that I like to include are payment terms. So again, this is a template. If it was applied to a project, there'd be dates here. I want, one of my brand values is transparency. So I want to make it super, super clear when payment dates are due, okay, on the proposal. So they're going to see this, of course, on the invoice and on the contract, but I want you to also see it before you even get there, right? But I don't want to slow you down. I don't want there to be, oh, I'm excited, I accept the proposal, and wait, hold up, I got to pay how much? I got to pay when, right? Like, it's all face up right here on the proposal before they even get to the contract and the invoice. And then another thing that I added recently this year is to just kind of level set how we work, right? I want to make it clear. Yes, by the time we hop on a call, usually, we've had a chance to feel each other out, feel that we're a good fit. But there's always that one experience that makes you kind of consider adding a little layer deeper of, information, right? So again, me being transparent, I want to make sure that while yes, what I do is important, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a firefighter, right? Like, what I do is not life or death. So I want to make sure it's super clear how we're going to work together. We'll communicate through a project hub, right? Please don't email me. When it's time for support, you'll get provided a link on how to request support. I am not available 24/7, right? I'm available on these days. My office is closed on Monday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm all about having biz boundaries, and I hope you are too. Therefore, these are my office hours, right? And then just sharing, like, oh, by the way, these are holidays that we recognize, right? My birthday, my wedding anniversary, and then, of course, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all of those things. And then this is just a subtle, like, upsell of, I found that a lot of my clients tend to come to me and they're like, okay, this sounds great. But then once you're done, like, once my support ends, am I like on my own? So I just kind of let them know, like, hey, I'm not gonna like formally ask you to purchase additional support now, but I do offer it, right? Prior to your support window ending, you'll be extended an offer for this additional support. Okay. So again, we haven't even made it to onboarding. I want to make it clear in the proposal how we're going to work together. Okay. This is how I work. If this works for you and you feel like we're a good fit, cool. If you want somebody to be available 24/7, answering phone calls, answering text messages, I'm not your girl, right? And that's fine. I'm not for everybody, and that is okay. But really want to make it clear here inside of the proposal how we go do that, okay? Again, we're making these boundaries clear early and often. Now, I'm gonna pull up my agreement. I am not a lawyer. So you work with your lawyer on your terms, right? But I do want to make sure you guys make it clear how I restate a lot of these expectations and boundaries, right? So as I mentioned on the proposal, they're going to see the pre-work due date. They're going to see when our kickoff call is. They're going to see when implementation is. They're going to see when support ends, right? Using these project mapped fields. I want you to acknowledge and understand all project dates and due dates as listed. Because if the delay is because you haven't, completed your pre-work, then we're going to have to reschedule, right? So again, I'm making these things clear early and often throughout our process, right? They're going to see their payment schedule using the payment schedule smart field, right? So the same information that was on their proposal is here as well. It's all clear. Boom. Ashley, I'm going to sign. Ashley, take my money. Okay. And then the last piece that I wanted to show you guys when it comes to your boundaries is having an experience guide. Now, last week I talked about how I feel it's really, really important that we implement or provide that instant gratification, right? So when somebody signs up with me, I want them to receive their welcome guide immediately during office hours, right? Because I never want somebody to feel like I just kind of took their money and ran off, right? So using the experience guide really helps to set those boundaries early, but then it allows me and my team the opportunity to go do the other stuff that we need to do to prepare for this client to kick off, right? So they're going to receive this welcome guide. Then I'm going to have a whole bunch of zaps. If you didn't catch the video, go catch it. But I'm going to have a whole bunch of zaps that take action to create their homework form, create their Google Drive, add all of these things to Airtable, send a link to my team to say, hey, we need to go take action on these things, right? But in the meantime, the client's receiving their experience guide and they're able to review everything, meet the team, get acclimated, right? And kind of keep that excitement going, right? You know, when we get off a call with somebody and they're ready to move forward, we want that excitement to continue, right? Like we don't want it to be a, well, damn, what now? What happens next, right? So sending this immediately kind of sets those expectations and those boundaries. In my welcome email, I say, you know, hey, I'm excited. I hope you are too. First things first, review this. I do send the homework separate because I feel people don't read. I am people, right? And I want to make sure that folks can really review the experience guide and then receive their homework later. Okay. So throughout this guide, again, I'm a little extra. So I do include a video that kind of walks them through, right? I'm thanking them, but I want to make sure, okay, you don't want to read it. Let me talk you through it. Okay. I explain some of my boundaries, like my availability, but again, it's another way to make sure that they're fully acclimated. They got what they need, and then we're good to go from here. Okay. So this video walks them through this exact guide here. I introduce the team. If you have team members, I do think it's important to just really level set with who they'll be working with or who they'll be engaging with, right? So, yep, this is me, this is my family, but also Montana is my client services and systems assistant, right? So you'll be hearing from Montana. You know, I don't want there to be a surprise of like, oh, wait, who is this? Why is this person messaging me too in our project hub? It's setting that boundary of, you know, everything's not going to come from Ashley. It allows me the opportunity to delegate when I need to. And then for them to get acclimated with Montana. So this is really important for me to include here, setting that boundary, making it clear, right? If you don't want to list a person, you could say, you know, our team admins, you know, assistants, you know, whatever. They'll be contacting you from whatever email address. Okay. When we're available, how we communicate, right? So restating the same information here in the welcome guide, not just in the proposal, but also here in the welcome guide of, look, this is when I'm available. It's not 24 hours a day. This is how we'll communicate, right? In their welcome email, they also get to know, hey, you'll receive an invite to access your project hub, but make sure you check out this guide first, okay? And then the important project dates. So again, for me, it's important to make sure it's super clear. So if we're doing a Dubsado project, they're able to see the same information again. So the same dates that I shared on the proposal, the same dates that they signed off on the contract are listed here in the experience guide. This is what pre-work is for. This is when it's due, right? The date would populate here. This is a template. But if it was applied to a client's project, the date would be here, the project kickoff call, implementation session, the wrap-up call, and the end of support, right? This is clearly a coded form, but this allows me to also just make sure it's clear across services, right? So the process is a little different depending on the service, but everybody has dates. I want to make it clear of when those dates are and what you can expect to have happen, right? If you don't have a coded form, you could create an experience guide for each service, right? If each service has totally different expectations or boundaries, you can create an experience guide for each one, You have an onboarding workflow for each one. And then based off of the service that they purchase or whatever proposal you send, have that workflow start from there. Okay. And then just some fun stuff to talk about the people that I like in my business, right? So really this section of the welcome guide, if you have other business owners whose services are complementary to yours, this is a good way to plug it, right? So there's a few people, brand strategists, business strategists, copywriters who I highly recommend. I'm gonna show them some love here because they always show me love, right? Okay. And then just look, hey, let's do this. You'll be receiving an invite to your project hub along with your project guide and intake form within the next 48 hours, right? So they've reviewed the welcome guide. Boundaries are set. They're good. I'm good. We're good, right? I had somebody tell me that they felt like usually within the first 24 hours of, booking with somebody, they can tell if they're going to regret it, right? So we want to make sure that regret never sets in. There's never regret. It's always comfort and just reassuring our clients that, hey, I didn't just run off with your money. Like I'm invested. I'm doing the things that I said I was going to do. And then this is how we get started to do so, right? So this is my onboarding workflow that triggers automatically based off of my booking workflow. But welcome to Solution Integrators, friend. Like, let's get started. So I let them know, check out your welcome guide. It's got everything you need. Hours, communication, project timeline, how to get support, right? And then keep an eye out. As you'll see in the welcome guide, you'll receive an email inviting you to join me in the project hub, right? So again, I'm letting them know, hey, contract signed. You're confirmed on my calendar. And here's the welcome guide. Don't skip over it. Take your time. And then this is what's going to happen next, right? So I am using Dubsado to set these boundaries early and often through the proposals, through the welcome guide, through the contracts, through the automated emails, so that my clients always know what's happening. Nothing's ever left up for confusion, right? I'm sure you can probably think about those times where you paid somebody, even if it's a larger company, right? You paid somebody and then you didn't hear anything, right? Like if I don't get my shipping notification from Amazon or my order confirmation from Amazon, I'm gonna be like, hold up, what's happening, right? Like I gave you my money. What's happening now? So we always want to make sure that, again, we're looking at boundaries from both perspectives of, hey, I need to protect myself, my time, my energy, my peace, right? But then I also need to make sure my boundaries with my clients are just as clear, okay? So if you guys have questions, drop them in the chat. If you're catching the replay, drop them down below. Hop in my DMs on Instagram. If there's anything that you're like, I saw you share that. Can you go into that a little bit more? I'm always happy to do so. I truly am an open book when it comes to how I deliver my own services, right? So everything I showed you is in my account. These are things that my clients have received, are going to receive. So I won't lead you astray, okay? So again, you can connect with me over on Instagram, solution.integrators. Still here live. Send me some sort of emoji if you are still here live. Yeah, your IEP source, Dr. Brandy. Shoot me an email over on at connect@solutionintegrators.us. You let me know what tool you want audited, and I got you. Okay. So again, make sure you guys come back next week for our next session all around 3 client experience mistakes to avoid, regardless of what tools you use. And then our last session on the 23rd, our last live on the 23rd, is all about all-in-one tools just don't exist. It's not a thing, right? So if you have questions, again, drop them in the chat. Come hop in my DMs. But you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday.